Take it away.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. It is a Monday night, and we are so thankful that you are joining us, that you're hanging out with us. I will say this. If you check this out because you saw like the title of tonight's show, um, yes. If you check this out because you were looking for puppy dogs and rainbows and all that other kind of stuff, I don't know
I
what to tell
don't
you.
think
Get an old fashioned in your hand while you're at it. But
Right.
we decided that like I'm not oblivious, or I can't handle this conversation. Cubbie can't handle this conversation, so we had to bring somebody else in because three of us were not enough for tonight.
Tonight we had Jerry Bazata with us. Jerry, thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, you're welcome, John. You're welcome, John. And Dan, thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm glad I could be the crutch to help you guys along through this process.
There you are. Jerry, I was thinking about it, and I mentioned it in the last show, and it's like, we had you on numerous times from in that 2020 timeframe where we had our last economic situation, and tonight's topic, it's time to bring Jerry back.
Yeah. Although we're not talking about PPP loans and we're not talking about financial crisis. And I think, let's level set the playing field. There's a lot of noise out there.
Very much so.
And we're in this point that the market and everybody is reacting to what is being said, but nobody's looking at the numbers. And so we are in a economic cycle. We had 3 sincere years of robust 20% growth in the market. We're trying to tame inflation. And yes, did the tariff situations help? No, but we knew back in the latter part of 2024 that 25 was not going to be a robust year. And so what's happening is it's exacerbated by just all of the noise that's being created out there in the news media, the uncertainty in the markets, and a lot of it is just pure panic right now.
So Jared, you mentioned that 2020, you knew going into with 2024 that 2025 wasn't going to be as strong of a year. Was it because at that time we didn't, tariffs were talked about, but there wasn't anything. Is it just the cycle of so much growth that there has to be a reset, or what was your
John, you could have said it better. Understand one thing. We had a buildup of wealth from the pandemic up until 2024. You had disposable income, you had record profits, you had people with buffers in savings accounts. And where did we become a society? Oh, let's go on the trips that we didn't get to go on. If you look at the DJ industry, and I've talked to many, 2023 was an unbelievable year. But we came off of a year that had a whole buildup of inventory, our inventory being couples that wanted to get married. We flushed through that in 2024, and yet we didn't see that inventory rebuild, okay? The other piece of it is you've got high rates, you've got people that can't buy houses, you've got rising credit card debt, and people have diminished their savings accounts. In the banking industry alone, we've seen continued outflows of savings accounts and checking accounts. All right. So what that's telling us is all the money we saved through the pandemic, we have burned through it. So now you're having a consumer reset. You're also having companies go through something that's very different out there. Because of the labor shortage and the envision that I can't replace people, companies started beefing up their payrolls in 2023 and into 24, assuming that if somebody left, I've already got somebody in place to train. That's now also winding down too. So companies are looking at, do we really need these many employees? Are we overstaffed? They're looking at levels to really reset where they're at. They're looking at what their growth profit margins are. The other thing is people are feeling a pinch. Payrolls are not increasing as they were to the levels in 2023, 2024. All right. So all of that is kind of measured up. They only predicted, they reset, and talking to the chief economist, Merrill Lynch, is They had originally set the S&P to be at 6,600. They just reset it down to a level of 6,100 as a target for year end, which only puts us at a 2 to 3% growth. If you look over a 25-year period, that's been the average return rate on the S&P year over year. So we're not in dire straits. It's just our economy is resetting, and it's healthy, where the aggregate supply and demand curve is kind of resetting itself, which is normal in any economic cycle. You know, we're so used to it. And you look at the generations that came into light in after 2000, what did we see after the Great Recession of 2008? We were on an upward trajectory year over year. We were seeing 14, 15% growth. We were seeing inflation tamed. But once we got into the pandemic and the demand was exceeding the supply, you had no choice but to push that inflation rate up. Now what we're trying to do is push that back down. We're trying to make sure that we get to the aggregate demand and supply curve into an equalized position so that demand and supply kind of counterbalance themselves. That's where it'll get us to the 2% inflation rate.
So that, you know, to be able to get that that supply and that demand to more of an equal standing, there's going to be some pain points for that some of these businesses are obviously feeling. And one of those pain points is that there may be too many of these businesses or too many offering a similar service that there won't be enough to go around. How are some of these businesses thinking about that?
They're really taking a hard look at, do I want to stay in business? Do I want to rethink what my business model is? Okay. You know, we're going to see in the risk model that I looked at this morning, restaurant industry had an explosion between post-COVID to now. Okay. But people can't spend $35 for a chicken dinner. And so those days of going out and spending $35, people are rethinking it. What's driving the restaurant industry right now into a decline, and a significant decline, is the cost of labor and the cost of food and the cost of rent. So you wouldn't believe the average restaurant in some metropolitan markets is paying $200,000 to $300,000 lease payments on a yearly basis. You know, that's taking up maybe 20 to 21% of their gross revenues. There's no way you can survive on that. Okay? Consumers are cutting back. They know they're looking at the value. Why is Applebee's still around? We know that Hooters just filed for bankruptcy. I'm aware of 3 other major restaurant chains that are teetering on the bankruptcy position. And so it's the supply in the market is now outseeding the demand. And we know it in our wedding industry.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's look at our industry in total. Okay. And when things get tough, people look for a secondary source of income. Okay. The reality is it's very easy to be a DJ today. You have a laptop, you have iTunes, you go buy a Hercules controller for $200 and you're a DJ. I think about when I got into the industry. Okay. What did I have to do? I had to get myself in a record pool. I had to go out and buy the equipment, those big amps, everything else. People look at it as, I have an iPhone, I can be a friggin' photographer, okay? And so it's the easy mark. This is nothing new because this happened in priors in 86, 91, 97, where the economy went to a downturn. Hey, I can paint my house. I'm going to become a painter. Hey, I know how to make a park bench. I'm going to become a carpenter. Okay, I'm going to go build a house. And so people look at that as another way to make income. What I'm already seeing with the wedding industry, the catering industry, is that market's beginning to start to filter itself out. I'm starting to hear some rumors of DJs going, I don't want to do this anymore. And I think it's I'm going to call us on the veteran end, where the competitive market is just, you know what? I don't want to compete against the 99-cent DJ store. I don't want to compete against the dollar DJ store. And so there's going to be some of that natural attrition. Guys like me retiring at the end of this year, hanging up the headphones. Although people said, Jerry, you can't do it. But it's something that's crossing our mind.
Right.
I also think in understanding, hey, I want to get in a DJ, and when they see the work that's involved, they're naturally going to select out of it. When they don't see the revenue that's coming in, what are they going to do? Oh, I talked to a friend of mine who said, I can make $20,000 part-time DJing, and I only made $5,000. Is it really worth my time away from my family? So I do think we're going to see that. I'm already seeing it with caterers. I know several florists that have closed up shop. Photographers that have decided I'm only going to take 2 or 3 events a year rather than the 30 that I originally took. So that will be a natural progression for us. We're just in a point of where we're in pain right now because everybody got into it, invested in this equipment. They want to try to make it work. But I think naturally, if this is, and I'm hearing as much as wedding vendors are off 50% this year, that will cause a natural selection. The other thing is those that went full-time, what happened during the pandemic? What did they do? They went out and sought other employment. A good friend of mine, he was in it. During COVID, he ended up going back to being a tech in the car industry, and he's hung it up. He hung it up 2 years ago and said, I'm better off just doing this and not trying to do a second part-time job.
Sure.
I think you're going to see that also happening too. So yes, it's painful right now, but this is the transition we're going through, and it's a natural economic cycle.
I wonder though, in this one, it's a little bit, because the most recent time we had a major downturn was that 2008, 2009 time frame. And coming out of that, we had a lot of people who did exactly as you were describing. They, hey, I can make some extra money. I can make $200 on a Saturday doing a wedding with, 2 speakers and a set. It happened. It was a big part of that. This time, I wonder though, if our supply is, or I should say the demand side of it, if there's as many weddings, because we have fewer couples out there, fewer people are getting married. Somebody mentioned in a chat that exact situation. And I wonder if this is going to hit us differently this time than it did last time. Last time, somebody like myself, we came right through 2008, 2009 very successfully, and we had a strong time with multiple systems. This particular time, it feels a lot different. And in some ways, I'm in a very rural agricultural part of the state, and we've been starting to feel pain in this area for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it's really gotten to the point now where people are starting to be concerned about, where that money's coming from, what have you. I'm really wondering if this will be different because of that supply and demand equaling out is not going to be at a level that we've seen in the past.
John, you hit on a very good point. Couples' taste and their desires are changing. And I'll point to it specifically. I had 2 couples that were booking me for a full wedding, and they decided to go to an elopement ceremony. So literally what's happening is they canceled the full wedding. I normally charge $3,000 to do a 6-hour wedding with ceremony. In this case, I'm charging $1,000. I'm doing a half-hour ceremony and an hour-and-a-half cocktail hour over and done with. And they're not going to the full-blown dinners. I have another couple. They didn't even want a DJ at their wedding, but the parents of the bride and groom are pushing for a DJ. So my client is the parents. Couples are also look at the trend. When you go back to 2008, what was it? Get engaged, get married, get our careers, get a house, get settled, have kids.
Yes.
The trend in the consumer trend today is get our career settled, get engaged, find a house, and then we could do the wedding. I ask every DJ that's on this call, how many couples are you dealing with that they already own their own home? Okay, so think about the disposable income. If we look at a $500,000 mortgage when the mortgage rates were 3%, and you look at a $500,000 mortgage when the rates are 7%, that's $1,600 a month increase in what the mortgage payments would be. So you take that 16 multiplied by 12, that's what they would have spent on the wedding. So, and the couples, I had a couple that I talked to just before we got on this call, okay? They've been living together for 5 years. They've been engaged for 5 years. And literally he said to me, I'm so tired of my mother and father annoying me about when we're going to have a wedding. We're doing it. And he goes, we're doing it very simple with a barbecue. We want to put the money towards your DJ. We heard you're great. We're willing to pay your price. But you know what? We're cutting back on the bar. We're just going to have beer and wine and maybe 2 specialty cocktails. We're not going to go overboard on the dinner. we're not going to go overboard on the flowers. We're doing this for our parents. And so that's the real change that's come about, John. That's the real change that's developed out there. Destination weddings, people going away. I have a friend, unfortunately, I can't make her wedding, but she invited 40 people to the Turkish and Caicos Islands to do her wedding. She said, I don't want a big 200-person wedding. We'd rather go away to an island and spend a couple of days there. So we have to realize it's more of the client's taste and change,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hold on.
And I think that's also coming into play. They want to invest in crypto. They want to invest in the market. They want to set up long-term retirements. I've seen in my employ more and more younger people entering the market at ages 25 to 35 that are so focused in on setting up a 401k, looking at investments, that also overplays to where the wedding industry is.
I think, definitely.
I think in a lot of markets, except on maybe call out New Jersey, the wedding mills are gone. They are no longer existent.
Jerry, let's hold on to this now. I want to have Cubbie kind of compare a little bit, because Cubbie, you've been obviously hearing what Jerry's talking about. Are you seeing, because now for those of you who don't know, Jerry's on the East Coast, has more of a thumb on that area. Cubbie and I are from the Midwest. Cubbie's from a larger city in the Midwest than I am. So Cubbie, what have you been seeing? Things that Jerry's been talking about when it comes to this age group and such, and what their attitudes are when it comes to booking and spending the money for the weddings.
Yeah, I would have to say my booking ratio is a little bit down, mostly because financial, right? Like you said, they're cutting back. Instead of doing real flowers, they're doing silk flowers, and instead of doing cakes, you're doing cookies, or something like Jerry said. They're starting to pinch pennies a little bit more. Maybe not so elaborate weddings, but that's, I think, some of that generation too, because we've already talked in shows previously how so many traditions are just going away, right? And so I think this new generation of younger brides and couples have a different vision for their big day, and it's not as big as it used to be, or grandeur as it is, and it's a lot of the parents that are driving the bigger weddings, I believe, because some of them are financing it a little bit more than the couples are. Jerry, are you finding that couples are financing more of these, or the parents are, or is it like a three-way, like the couple pays 30, the bride's parents pay 30, and the groom's parents pay 30? What are you finding out?
I would say, let me look at 2024. 80% of the weddings, the couples paid for it themselves. Yeah.
Interesting.
And here's the other thing, Cuddy, too, is look at the average age of our bride. Now, I got married in 1986. I come from an Italian family. If I wasn't married by 21, they were ready to put me in the grave. Okay. if the average bride today is hitting 30. So there's this, I'm going to wait. I've got the career. And why I back that up is every single couple that I've engaged with, the first thing they do is connect with me on LinkedIn. And I look at their profile, and they've got master's degrees. They're working as program engineers. So the focus is on my career. What am I doing for myself? So that, again, that wedding becomes sort of that secondary piece. It's, yes, I want to get married. I want to have the white dress, but I want to do it on my terms, not that society dictates I have to be married at 26 years old and we have to have the house with the white picket fence by the time we're 28. The other thing is, my daughter, she wants to travel. She wants to be liquid. I don't want to be tied to a house. I want to be able to pick up and move. She is in the culinary industry. If I decide I want to work at Disney in Florida, I want to be able to go down here on a moment's notice. So I think a lot of that is also playing into it in terms of what we're doing. So I agree with you. You've got to think two ways. You've got to market for the bride that wants the big, fancy, all-in-one fireworks wedding. And then you want the couple that just, as I say to my couples today, it's not a wedding anymore. It's a party. It's a gathering. And that's where the conversation has changed.
You definitely see that that there has been that change in focus from what we had, whether it's formalities going away or just age, the age and experience of the couples. Jerry, you mentioned the getting the house and different things. My day job that I have at the post office, I have a few couples that are getting married this year. And it's interesting. That's exactly what they're doing. They bought the house. They have their jobs and what they're doing. And again, small town of 250 people. There's, I think, 4 couples that are getting married in that town, and that they all own a house. And it's obviously not that expensive in this town to own a house, but that has, those people are proving you're right very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't.
Go ahead,
one question
Dan.
I might say with that, though, that has me wondering, you talked about the interest rate, right? The 3% before, and now it's 6.5%, 7%, whatever it is for the mortgage market. I don't think we're going to get down to the 3 again anytime soon, but I also wonder how many of our couples might start to have some of those priorities shift of, well, you know what? We're okay renting for a while and do the marriage, like do the wedding, and then do the house later, only from the standpoint of waiting for that market price to come down. Because, like you said, going from 3 to 7 is $1,600, extra a month. Like that ends up being a huge difference. I don't think I haven't seen that yet. I don't know. That's just a speculation when I was hearing those numbers of I wonder if we'll see some of that shift away from house first, wedding second.
That shift is happening with the urban markets, Dan, and there are a lot of couples, as you see spring up across the country, these micro communities where you have 280 units and you have some retail, and you have, one I can think of is in Salem, New Hampshire, Tuscan Village, which is the most prominent out there. People do like those micro community type livings for a period of time, but they do want to get to that house. The interesting thing is the interest rates aren't deterring people. What the interest rates are deterring is people refinancing their house and doing work on their house. That's where the deterrent is. The buyers are still out there, and surprisingly, there's a strong number of cash buyers that are still in the market. So the demand we haven't seen the supply outseed the demand, except in two key markets, California and Florida. And that's driven because of what climate change, the climate and the insurance industry and all of that. You have those markets on a decline because of exterior factors outside of the economy. But still, I think couples want to look at it. There's also one other thing, Dan, that you trigger on where the couples are looking at. Couples in the Gen X and so forth, they're not as quick to go into debt. I remember my generation. Oh, what hell? Put it on a credit card, and when I get my bonus at the end of the year, we'll pay it off. They're very conscious of credit card debt. My daughter, every month, pays off her credit card bill. She's not going to charge something if it doesn't hit in her budget. And I see with many of her friends that same type of attitude. So I think the other thing we're dealing with is our clients, our customers, that age group from 21 to 40 to say 36, okay, they're not going to go into debt to achieve something. There's an interesting fact that came out today, and it blew my mind. Disney, okay, this was a real eye opener. The average median income in the United States across all markets is $85,000 a year. Anybody want to take a guess what an average family of 4 will spend for a 1-week vacation at Disney?
Cubbie, didn't you?
I can tell you.
Yes, please, Cubbie.
I go all the time, like all the time. I would probably say we throw in a cruise on top of that, or we like right afterwards out of Florida. Okay,
you're going to say 7 days on average. What is the range to be in Disney for 7 days for 2 adults and 2 kids?
$9,000.
You're right on the mark, because it averages from $7,500 to $12,000.
Jeez.
Okay, so again, people will go and hawk for Disney, okay, or that's what they'll do. This is our big expenditure. So I think again, it's what are we getting the biggest bang for our buck? And I think that also comes into play too. So But I think the overall riding thing is all of us that are in the industry, guys, just ride the wave. Do the best you can to book the business you can. Be cognizant of your clients. Be negotiable in your fees, because come 2026, we reset all over again. And so it is just, this is a down economic cycle. We're in a time of turmoil, and there's no way you can change it. And shouting out on social media about the guy who's advertising $300 all in for a wedding, he's doing that because he's got to put food on the table. Okay. But he's not going to be there forever. So it's a blip on the radar. Steadfast to what you're doing, steadfast to your own business rules, steadfast to your budget. You will come out of this if you keep a level-headed focus and just continue to do what you're doing.
So with consumer confidence, that's obviously a big word that we're hearing, or a big phrase that we're hearing across the news right now, being very low. How is that going to change the way the business plan that you have? Your business plan basically says I need to be at a certain price point and offering a certain service. But if consumer confidence is down and people aren't as confident in being able to make their event the way we are used to selling them and providing them, what kind of adjustments would you recommend that they make during this uncertain time?
I wouldn't. And again, consumer confidence level is simply a barometer of where the economy is. And it's not anything scientific. And keep this in mind. I can be approached by a poll that says, what is your confidence level with the economy? Oh, my confidence is way low. It's at 30%. Hey, dear, can we go out for steak dinner tonight? So, yeah, okay, that's the reality. Okay, we're not going to stop what we're doing. So consumer confidence is a barometer for government and for the Fed to determine what they do. Think about fiscal and monetary policy. Okay. Monetary policy is driven by the Fed. Fiscal policy is driven by Congress. They're trying to get a barometer of where it is. I think some of this low consumer confidence is because of the tariffs. I think it is artificially, and that is my opinion. I'm not stating anything for fact from any economist, but I think the low level is because people are confused about what's going on. Okay. Let's talk about our industry and the availability of equipment. Okay. I was literally, once tariff was putting in this, I saw everybody run, oh my God, you're going to spend $5,000 for your QSE speaker. Okay. Here's the reality. They brought in all the inventory way before this. I know of a liquor distributor that shipped 2/3 of their inventory abroad before the tariffs hit. I know of a paving company in the mid-Atlantic states that has a Pacific board, okay, for their paving units. They're the largest manufacturer. They brought them in 6 months ago. And then in turn, when Trump was talking about the tariffs, they shipped 100 units to Canada, okay, before the tariffs hit, okay? In the background, companies were anticipating this. They were doing this, okay? I was at IDJ Now. We're walking around the speaker departments. Every one of their speakers had a natural increase in price. And I was looking at RCF and I said to Brian Marsh, how much was this 6 months ago? He goes, it was $50 cheaper. This one was $100 cheaper. We knew the price increases were coming all along. So what I tell people is don't panic buy right now, okay? We had this whole hiccup, market crashes down 3,000 points. The next 2 days later, it's up. He poses it for 90 days. Okay, this is a bargaining chip. In my opinion, this whole tariff war is all a bargaining chip to try to level set trade across the world. And it's Trump's bargaining chip. But in the end, I think we're going to come out of this. We just need to ride the wave. I can't tell you how many phone calls I got after the 3,000 point drop in the market. Do I sell everything? Yes. And put it in a Maxwell coffee jar, go dig a hole in your backyard, put a little flag and send me your address so I can go dig it up. Okay.
That'd be great. So from the business standpoint, you mentioned, of course, there's a natural increase in the price of the speakers you were talking to Brian about. That's a question people have had, and they mentioned with Ben on our Tuesday night show, is that, okay, so if the price goes up, are they ever going to come back down again? Or is it basically that these prices are going to go up and then this becomes the new norm, even if the tariffs level out or go away?
Take into account supply and demand. And everybody says once prices come up, they can't come back down. Okay. That's not true, because what's going to happen is once we sort through this whole tariff situation, the manufacturers that make this equipment can't make money unless they sell the equipment. So yes, it's just like gas prices. Look at the price of eggs. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, everybody in America is a chicken farmer. And, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal about how communities are dealing with backyard chicken coops because everybody wants to raise their own eggs.
Yep.
All right. Egg prices came down. We saw skyrocketing on a lot of other things. It's a blip. It's based on supply and demand. If everybody wants a brand new controller and 1,000 people want it and there's only 500 in the market, what are the distributors, what are the stores going to do? They're going to raise the price on it. Once the inventory flows back in, once they become it, they're going to re-level set the price. If they're not selling, they're going to look at a mark. Here's a classic example. Look at your local gas station. When oil prices are going up, look at how fast the price rises. Mm-hmm. I can tell you from experience, I had a major oil drilling company within my portfolio. They said, Jerry, they will get a delivery of gas at $1 a gallon. They're going to sell it for $2 a gallon. Now that gas has been delivered, they pay for it, it's sitting in the tanks. All of a sudden, oil prices start ticking up. What do? They start ticking up the gas price on the same oil that's sitting in the tank. Because how do you think gas stations make their money? Because they play the market and they play the volatility in the market, not based on what they had and what their spread is there. So this is where convenience and gas stations make their money. When oil prices start falling, have gas prices started coming down? We're down to 65 on bent crude, okay? I'm still seeing $3.15 a gallon when it was at $78 bent crude, okay?
Yep.
So again, it's this, prices will come down. They're going to be forced down because we're getting into the summer, we're getting into the travel period. Are people traveling? Are people buying airline tickets? How did it increase? We cut back on the number of airlines. We cut back on the number of seats. Okay. The demand went up, skyrocketed prices. Now they're back down again. I'm flying to Florida out of Boston, round trip on JetBlue on the extra leg room, and it's only costing me $3 something a ticket. When I went last year, I was almost 600 ticket at the same time. So yes, they will come down, guys. But don't run and panic buy, because if you are tight in your budgeting and you're not getting the business in, see how you can last with what you have. And the money that you make, put in the reserve so that when the good times return, you can take that money and spend it. Okay? Don't go out and panic buy because you think, oh, this is going to cost $400 more a year from now. Well, your real cost of that equipment is you buy it now, but if you can't implement it and you're not making money on it, it's going to cost you more in the long run because you're not getting the return on that piece of equipment. And then I'm going to see you 6 months from now posting on some of the boards, like new, still in the box.
Barely used.
Barely used. No fingerprints.
Yeah, never was on the So Jerry, as things are going to be, as you've kind of alluded to, it could be a tighter year or could be a tighter booking season even for 2026. What are some suggestions for people who typically, like in Cubbie's situation, Cubbie this is all he does for income. He is a DJ. And for many of us, we've done this and it's been our full-time job. And then over the winter we lived our lives as we have in the past. That may be just a little bit different over the next year or two as we're working our way through these difficult times. What are some tips maybe for people who want to continue in this industry, but yet don't want to lose become homeless during this uncertain time?
Okay, so you've got to start expanding beyond. We know that weddings are the bread and butter for us. Okay, we know it's the big money maker. I will share with you from my research, corporations are flooded with cash and going back to events. The company that I just started working for, we're going to attend 30 corporate events this year. Okay, trade shows. All right, start getting out there and seeing what you could do marketing with companies. Look and expand beyond. I'm not saying the nightclub industry is dead and gone. I'll never relive the big mega clubs in the 80s that I had the pleasure of DJing with, but look at where you can expand otherwise. Anniversary parties, birthday parties, okay? Yes, you may not get the $2,000 or $3,000, but you know what? A day that you're sitting at home, is lost revenue for you. So really begin to see where you can kind of expand beyond it. Those that are doing karaoke, those that are doing trivia. Okay. Trivia is still very strong out there. So you may have to diversify a little bit in order to get you through this period, and that you can let go. Okay. If you have DJs working for you, make sure they are working for you and helping to bring in business and promoting your business. If they're not, let them go and let them go off on their own. Okay. Keep your core base that's going to help you generate business. So that's for the multi-ops. Those owners of multi-ops need to get those DJs involved in helping them bring in business. Keep in contact with your centers of influence. Make sure you're reaching out to the caterers. Make sure you're reaching out to the venues, meeting up with them. There was a guy, Music Man DJ here in Maine. Every week he would deliver cookies to his favorite venues, or he'd deliver quiche, or he'd find a way just to touch base. For myself, with my couples, and the venues that I work with, I take every month when DJ X and DJ Life shows us the 10 new songs for April, I have a rolling email and I send out, hey guys, here's the newest songs that have come out this month for the wedding industry. I've gotten referrals off that just because they share it with somebody else and they're like, oh, you're in the know in the music industry. We'd like to talk to you. Nonprofits, they're right now in a position where they want to raise money. Okay. They also begin to realize we're not going to donate our work. I picked up a gig for a nonprofit that's doing a $150 black tie dinner, and they're paying me $2,000 to MC the silent auction, provide music for dancing. We're coming up with a theme. Okay. Look at some of the promoters out there. Look at Gimme Gimme Disco. Oh my God, that thing is exploding all over the place.
What's that?
Maybe you connect. What's that?
Yeah, what is that?
You don't know what that is?
No,
not in the Midwest.
Not in the Midwest.
Okay. Cubbie, in New York, there's a group that formed a thing called Gimme Gimme Disco, and they go and they book nightclubs and they book event venues, and it's actually their DJs do a whole disco set. Well, they've now expanded into doing a theme night of Broadway tunes. My daughter attended it in Rhode Island. They sold out the venue at $20 a ticket. They're now doing a whole ABBA themed basis off of it. So I actually went to a local venue and I just said, can we do an ABBA night? And they go, oh my God, we've been thinking about it all along. Do you want to help us out with that? So, it's just being creative, and it's thinking about what you can do in your own marketplace. We're DJs. We like to have a lot of fun. I see the ones who post about the block parties, the ones who are DJing at the stores, the ones who are DJing at Costco. It's a little bit of money in your pocket to take your wife or your girlfriend for McDonald's and a movie with a small popcorn, but what the heck? Again, it's keeping you active. It's keeping you out in the marketplace. So I would definitely say part of your business plan is don't hunker down and go, I'm only going to do weddings. Where else can you do? Have you ever branched into doing proms? We all hate school proms. But what about bar mitzvahs? What about, other types of celebrations that you can begin to market to? Of course, don't convolute yourself. I love this, the DJ who I went out to his site. He's got weddings. It's one site. He's got weddings on one tab, selling real estate on the other, and on the third tab, he's a travel agent. I would not advise that at all.
Well, trying to diversify there.
Yeah. I mean, what does he do in front of his DJ booth? Show the recent listings to the house with all the weddings going on?
Well, couples are buying houses.
You got an audience there.
Yeah. So, but Cubbie, what you've got in your marketplace, doing the right things, and I would tell any DJ, don't take away from the focus of you driving business. Okay. I love it out on Facebook. I've never seen so many DJs posting out there about their services. Ramu and his crew have come up with some great advertising out there to the New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts wedding couples. Get creative, get ingenuitive. This is the time to invest in yourself. And then what I'm going to say more importantly is everybody that's on this call, you've got to attend a conference, because the best source of you getting to hear what your peers are doing, picking up ideas is networking. This is not the time to shut down. Okay. And the excuse, I don't have money to go, get in a car and drive to DJX for one day. Get in a car and drive to Marquee Show for one day. You know, Keith would love to have you at that show, even if it's for a day, just to have you learn and interact and mingle. And even if you can't, go ask Keith about attending one of the events at night. Learning from your peers is going to be the greatest value that you can have.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Talk a little bit about, because we've talked about the debt a little bit and how the debt has been so extreme and people are maxed out, and mortgages. There's going to be some things that opportunities or situations where debt or having to go into debt and put something on a credit card may make sense right now for a person, and it may not during this kind of a reset time. If you were going to have a barometer for making decisions, financial decisions, where would that barometer be when it came to gear and growing a business or trying to advertise a business or attend training? I mean, where do you draw? Where would you recommend drawing a line?
Well, here's the one thing is make sure that if you're going to go into debt, you have a plan to repay it. So if that debt you're going into allows you to make future dollars, that's a good, smart move. To go into debt because I got to have the latest controller that came out by Pioneer, that's not a good thing to go into debt. Or I need the new great looking QSC speakers because I have to show everybody when I post my setup, I've got the newest equipment. That's not the answer. However, John, what is happening in the marketplace right now is credit card companies are offering 0% interest for 12 months, 16 months, 24 months. Bank of America has a credit card out there right now that if you apply for the credit card, any purchases between now and I think it's May 2026, you pay no interest. So those are out there. I know TD Bank just made an announcement today on another credit card. So look at where you're at. Balance transfers. I know that JetBlue with their card, they were offering initially, if you balance transfer in the first 60 days, they will give you 18 months for a balance transfer. Now you're going to pay the 3% fee, but it far offsets what you're paying into 20% if you're carrying a credit card balance.
Sure.
So yes, if you're going to go into debt, do your research. Okay. We all know how to Google credit card offers out there. I know Chase has one on a Sapphire right now. Those are the ones that you want to look at. All right. If you want to restructure any debt, definitely meet with your bank. SBA is doing a lot of different things when it comes to restructuring debt. They've loosened up the rules in terms of refinancing debt. I would talk to your local bank about that. Cars, if you've got to get a vehicle, go through the dealership. Okay. Indirect lending through the dealership is going to be your cheapest rate because everybody competes. The banks, the credit unions all compete for indirect lending through the dealerships. You know, the car financing packages, there's a lot of great deals out there and the dealerships are willing to work with you. Their inventory levels are higher than they were pre-COVID right now. And so when that car sits on a lot under floor planning, that car is costing them money every day it sits on a lot. I was looking at a new car for myself, and I got it within the week that I was debating about it. They came down a total of $7,000 on the price in 1 week. And then it got sold out from underneath because I couldn't decide fast enough.
Yeah, it was such a good deal.
Yeah, but I think just do your research, okay? You got to keep a good credit score. You got to keep your credit clean, okay? And if you get into a position where you think you're in trouble, talk to the banks, okay? Anybody who gets into trouble, they think they can hide or they're not going to say anything. And then when the bank finally calls them out or the creditor finally calls them out, what happens 90% of the time? Credit's going to go, if you told us what was going on, we could work with you. So, I mean, that's the real basis. Banks have not shut down lending. They're going to take an extra hard look. So if you're in the restaurant industry or you want to start a restaurant, good luck. I don't think you're going to get anybody that's going to finance you right now because that's on a high risk ratio. But office buildings, there's plenty of SBA financing for real estate. Just be cautious as to what you're doing and do your research.
And Jerry, that's where I wanted you to go next year as we're getting closer to the end of this. Talk about business property, because Nikki Nell a couple of weeks ago was talking about she purchased a storage facility or warehouse for her DJ business, and she's been able to utilize that and with some different tax write-offs. So what? But what about the investing in an office building or in a warehouse right now? Is an investment like that, if you were looking at making something like that in the future, is this the time? Is it better to put it off till 2026? What's your suggestion there?
Okay. Well, right now, any investment real estate that you're going to do, they're going to base it off as historical. And you're going to be putting down payments. Banks are not going to let you buy investment real estate with no money down. So the days of Tommy Wan spoke saying, you could be just like me with no money down and owning a whole bunch of property isn't happening anymore. Be aware they are going to push you for 25% down. So if it's owner occupied, like the DJ you mentioned that bought a warehouse for her equipment, a storage area, yes, you can get 90% financing through the SBA. So if you're looking and it makes sense for your business, absolutely now is the time to do it. The rates are coming down, and a lot of times the bank's going to just lock you in for 5 years, knowing that rates will probably come down. My prediction is we will probably see rates come down from 50 to maybe a full 100 basis points by the end of the year. Earlier prognostication was, one interest rate cut, then we jumped to 5 and the tariffs and the fall of the market. I think realistically, we're going to see 3 interest rate cuts. It's just when the Fed feels comfortable. I would predict we'll probably see one in June, maybe one in September, and one just before the holiday season. Right now, because people have drained their savings, the cost of capital for banks is high because banks are having to borrow, so they're trying to gather in deposits. So certainly from a savings perspective, you're at an advantage right now, but I certainly would go cautiously. I would avoid office buildings unless you're purchasing an office condo for your business, but I would not look at office buildings. I would not look at strip malls. I wouldn't look at retail. 1 to 5, residential family investment is still strong out there. But again, where the market is, the biggest thing about investment real estate is you have a lot of competition from the major builders out there with these micro communities. I live in a complex that's built here in Kittery, Maine. It's been the showpiece. 280 units, our own pool, our own health facility, garages, storage units, walking paths, outdoor pool, outdoor grill, outdoor fire pits. That's where people are being attracted to. And that's where the higher income is coming into it. You want to buy a 2-unit. I wouldn't look at single family right now. Again, the rates are kind of high. I tend to tell people to stay away from that. 1 to 4 families is still a solid investment. You're going to have a hard time justifying if it's a handyman special to try to get the bank to finance it. You're going to have to put a lot more money into it. So we're just trying to see where this market settles out in terms of rents. And that's going to be the downside, is if rates do start to tick down quickly, it now brings more buyers into the housing market, which makes the vacancy rate go up even more on properties. And to be truthful, companies like the company that owns mine has a lot more flexibility to where changes in the market because they aren't highly leveraged. A lot of these properties don't exceed more than, say, a 40% leverage with investors. So they have more flexibility to return, where if you buy a multifamily property, you leverage it up at 75% and the rental market starts to take a downturn, you're going to get squeezed pretty hard.
Very hard.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, good stuff. Good information, Jerry. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So to sum up, don't panic.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. So yeah, don't panic. I mean, there's a lot of noise out there. Let's go back to Drumline. Okay. What did he say before the band walked onto the field? Let's turn off the radios now. Turn off the social media. turn off Bloomberg, turn off the news, sit and watch your favorite TV show, and just ride the wave.
And ride the wave.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Cubbie,
I
what
have
do you
one
got?
last question.
Go ahead.
So
Sure.
I we were talking and you were like, if you don't have to buy it, don't buy it. But I'm a multi-op, and I was literally thinking about buying a couple wireless microphones just to have as backups, right? Something happens in the seasons before the market comes back down. Do you think that's a wise investment? Do you just have a backup on a microphone? I'm not looking at buying major controllers or anything like that, but
No, that's what I would label, Corcoran. That's what I would label as smallware. That's something you really need. What I'm more talking about is the guy that all of a sudden is going to drop $20,000 on you. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, you do need a backup. You can't jeopardize your business. And that's what I call smallware. The wireless microphones, the cases, the stands. Do you go out and invest in 100 uplights? Well, if you have to give it away, why are you going to invest in 100 uplights?
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing too is, oh my God, we're down on weddings. We're losing income. Let's go buy a photo booth. Yeah. And then we see out on social media, everybody giving away photo booths. Okay. To me, that's not a smart investment. Okay. What you're doing is you're simply replacing gear, which is a good. So let's kind of clarify that. I'm glad that you brought that up. Let's talk about, you want to replace gear that needs to be replaced. You need to have the backup. Okay. You can't get caught short and then have to give back $3,000 on a wedding because your microphones failed and you didn't have backup. That's a bad business decision. But for you to go out and buy 4 lighted dance floors and go, let's start selling lighted dance floors to everybody in the marketplace and buying them at $15,000 a clip, is that the right decision? Maybe you buy one of the lighted dance floors and you give it a shot. If not, it becomes the new floor in your living room.
Yeah. And also within my business plan, there's a certain percentage of every wedding that goes to the gear, right? So I have a backup balloon for me already, but I just didn't know you were talking about. I'm not going to buy a chocolate fountain because I think those have come and gone. But everybody's got backups, but just in case a backup goes bad, I didn't want to spend $600 for a microphone where I could buy one for $300. You see what I'm saying? Okay.
Yeah, and people are also saying, I love the Sennheiser, but you know what? I can get away with the Shure. So you know what? Maybe the next round I'll buy the Shure for $300. Okay, so I've got it. It's a backup. I really don't have to get the Sennheiser at $600. And that's the decision. People are looking at the brands. They're looking at, is a Shure dual microphone good enough for me as a backup? Do I really need a dual Shure at $900 or whatever? And that's where people are making those conscious decisions. Okay. But you're absolutely, and you know what? I need to applaud you. If I was there, I would shake your hand. You know what? Every DJ should do exactly what you just said. And that is, every wedding, take a portion of that, put it in an account, and that becomes your working capital. That becomes your rainy day fund. Okay. You don't need to take that and buy the brand new BMW so you can show everybody pictures of your new it's $100,000 BMW. Why don't you show them pictures of the bank account that all year long I put so much aside for a wedding? So if things get bad, here's my reserve account that I don't have to go into debt for. So great comment. I applaud you on that.
Thanks, Jerry. I spend my money at Disney, if you can't tell.
Well, I'll let you in a secret. Disney's going after my daughter for culinary. And when we're down there in May, they're actually interviewing her for their premium restaurant. So Please keep your fingers crossed because she might be at Albert and Victoria's. So
that's amazing.
If she does, I want to connect with you and I'll make sure that you get a VIP dinner with her. So
we're going in February. We're going on a cruise. We're going to Disney. We're going on a Disney for 5 days and then on a Disney cruise in February during my off season. But
let's keep in touch
with my granddaughter. Yeah, it's big for us. It's we like Mike Walters says, is take the trip.
And that's the thing, is you also need a break. You want that money aside for it. And that's a positive thing. So Dan, any other comments? You've been quiet, Dan.
He has. I've been quiet today. It's okay. It's
a first.
It's a lot to digest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And guys, I'd be open if you guys get a ton of questions coming in. I'm more than open to jump back in again. If we see some things settle down and we see some changes in the market, I'm more than happy to to jump back on at any time. I'd love to be able to help you guys out.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
especially all your listeners.
Yeah,
So
definitely appreciate that, Jerry. So we're going to wrap up here in just a couple of minutes. So if you saw this Sunday email, you saw Jerry's name on there, but it wasn't for tonight. It was for tomorrow night. And due to a potential scheduling thing, we're soft scheduling. Either it'll be tomorrow night or Wednesday night that Jerry will be back on with me, and we're going to talk about Jerry the DJ and talk about his DJ career. We're not going to get into the financing and the economy. We're going to talk about his experience as an entertainer and dig into that a little bit. And that'll be happening either tomorrow night or Wednesday night. My kids have got a track meet tomorrow night. And if I get there early enough, we'll be on tomorrow night. Otherwise, we're going to be Wednesday night for a talk of Jerry with the entertainment side. So I'm looking forward to that, Jerry.
no, I look
Why
forward.
couldn't we have done that one tonight?
No, we needed to get this heavy lifting out of the way. That way we can just talk fun stuff. Yeah, sorry, and you can't come. You're not. You got to stay home, Dan. Can't.
Oh no,
This way I get to watch it.
Yeah, I was honored when Dan, and I remember this, Dan, when you were asked to talk about a memorable experience from DJ Times, and you brought my name up. So I am honored and humbled that you did that several years ago. So thank you.
And speaking of which, I came across that just recently, like where you reached out to me afterwards. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember if you wrote something or if it was an old email I came across, but I was just like within the last 2 weeks. So it's kind of funny, but yeah.
Yeah. So
DJNTV.com/chill. The chill room is open. They're going to be hanging out there in just a couple of minutes, and we'll make sure everything's ready to go. And you guys can go have the hallway talk and kind of get it digest some of the things we've talked about here in the last 2 hours, but in the last hour for sure. Dan, take us out.
Well, on that note, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Hopefully you learned a few things, you kind of feel better about a few things, and you've got a plan. That's what this is all about. Have yourself a great one, and we will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
sounds good. Take care, guys.